Hello, everyone, and welcome to lucky number 13 episode of Truth Noir. It's a pleasure to still be here, spreading some what we feel is the truth, what I'm pretty convinced is the truth. I've looked into it quite a bit, and I'm pretty sure that we're giving you less bullshit than Fox News. So. Welcome to it. Thanks for sticking with us. I'm here once again with Tom Zarzecki, and he was Tom Zarzecki, right?
Yeah, that's how you say it. Yeah.
He was here with us on our first Alien episode, and that was a lot of fun to do. So he's back again to talk with us about another kind of abstract concept that is kind of hard for people to accept, and that topic is cognitive dissonance. And basically what it means, and I have a definition here, we'll just go ahead and jump right into it. The definition that I've found for cognitive dissonance is the mental stress experienced by a person who holds two or more contrary beliefs, ideas, or values at the same time, or a person who is confronted by new information that conflicts with existing beliefs, values, or ideas.
Yeah, that's why it's so hard for people to break away from, even when they come across new information that kind of debunks what they already believe. It's just like that stress or that fear keeps them from continuing down the path of truth or whatever.
Well, yeah, and it's one of those things, and I feel like, there's two major ways in which cognitive dissonance happens. One of them, and they're certainly not the only ways, but two of the major ones are politics and religion. And it seems to me that these are two of like the most polarizing topics.
They're the ones they always say don't talk about them in a professional environment because it stirs things up.
Yeah, don't talk about it at work. Don't talk about it at Thanksgiving when you're trying to have a pleasant dinner with your family.
Yeah, we don't want to think, we don't need any changes in this institution because we already have our agenda, and that's what we're paying you for.
Well, yeah, and it's one of those things where, like, I'll admit, I've been a little bit polarizing myself these days, and been like, if you think this way, you're a fucking asshole.
Yeah, it's hard not to be a little bit of a fascist when you're so assured about your opinions, but that's why it's important to at least do your research.
Yeah, absolutely. And I try and make this show all inclusive. I'll be the first to admit there's been a few episodes, where I've been, and we are still doing a Fuckface of the Week segment. That's not going anywhere because I feel like part of teaching is giving examples of who not to act like, and I stand strong with the examples that we've made in those segments of don't be like these people. Among them have been Scott Walker, Zahi Hawass, among others. Are they the worst people in the world? No. But we're getting to them. It's a work in progress.
They're people that are just very confused and very angry that want their agenda, and you don't want to be as confused and fucked up as them. So
yeah, and one of the ways to do these things is to read books, be open-minded,
go with your gut.
Yeah, intuitive instinctual responses, scientifically have often been found to be the best. So it's those kinds of things that, we're talking about. And cognitive dissonance is one of the, it's a symptom of a disease that we are all victims of. And this is why I'm not going to like get all aggro and start calling people that have a certain opinion out.
Yeah, it's a confusing world.
Yeah, it's
We're all in a mess.
It's a confusing world, and this is a topic where we have to understand that the things that we believe, the opinions that we hold, oftentimes that are polarizing, are oftentimes not our own. And I found this, when I talk to people, when I get in debates with people, whether it's online or whether in person, a lot of times people are just quoting what they heard from whatever source of news, that they happen to agree with, but those thoughts are not their own. Like, they are repeating oftentimes word for word.
Yeah, sometimes you can catch it. Like, sometimes you can catch yourself too, like, whether it's true or not, you can find yourself or someone else, they're just like on that cycle of like perpetuating and regurgitating because it's just lodged in their brain, and it's their go-to answer because they're, I don't know, sometimes when you're talking, you're getting into, like, knowledge is important, but like if you're not thinking and feeling the things you're saying, then you may be derailing yourself from actuality.
Yeah, it's and it's one of those things where it is so insidious, these things, and oftentimes the information outlets that are so polarizing are owned by the same person, or at the very least the same entity. And so the people that are ultra liberal and that are watching, MSNBC and, saying that, like, well, we should just ban all the guns, and, and it's a, it's a laundry list of talking points, and the arguments have already been presented, and the way it's presented is that, like, you're an ignorant fuckhead if you disagree with any of these, right? And then you have Fox News that's the opposite of that.
But owned by the same people, trying to cause conflict, trying to get people to...
And if they're not owned by the same person, I would imagine that there's not too many degrees of separation, between them. Certainly less than there are between you and Kevin Bacon, kind of thing, and there's usually, 3?
Yeah.
So there's two degrees of separation between you and the person that you're sitting across from the table with, thinking, is an ignorant, worthless asshole because the channel they watch is different from the one you watch. And the basis for this, as I've come to understand it, and there's many other people that speak on it. We'll get to another far more famous one a little bit later. But the first one we're going to talk about is Eldon Taylor, and I've held up this book before, and I believe it was in the first episode of our show, where Eldon Taylor talks about how advertising, marketing, artwork is used to sway opinion. And it's very insidious, the word usage, to the extent that these news outlets that you get, these different networks that are owned by, now, as it turns out, about 5 people, have spent billions and billions, and probably now tens and hundreds of billions of dollars on research as to what is the most effective way to sway your opinion.
Are these the 5 people or families I'm thinking there?
Yeah, like Rupert Murdoch is one of them. Like, this is the guy that owns Fox News, and he recently just bought controlling stake in National Geographic. I heard this today, and it actually really bums me out, because National Geographic, and maybe Nat Geo TV has like done some dumb shit, but over the last 130 years, the National Geographic Society has been one of the largest non-profit organizations in the world. They've been one of the most prevalent in research grants to scientists. And I kind of wonder at the research that's going to be coming out now after Rupert Murdoch.
Is it going to be true? Is it going to be biased? Is it going to be swinging a certain way? Is it going to actually be research?
There's been so much talk these days about how the scientific method itself has been bought, and it's really disturbing because you used to be able to think, and at least this is what we were told when we were kids, that like, well, it's science. It's conducted by people who have gone to school for years, and
it's reliable research proof study.
Yeah, you might be able to, have, proven something, but then someone has to be able to duplicate your work, and you have to have it in a peer-reviewed journal, and it seems like more and more and more these sorts of processes are being eroded away, and it's not just in science, it's not just in politics, it's not just in religion, it's like society in general.
Well, I don't know, I guess that's the flaw of capitalism. If singular individuals or groups can like hijack everything, and it's fine to be in control of something if you're going to be honest about it, but if we're all working and perpetuating a system where everything is becoming biased towards the latter, I don't know, we're completely starving ourselves, taking food right off our own plates.
Yeah, it turns into one of those
eating plastic.
Our gooses are well and proper cooked, after a certain point, because if they're able to convince us that we need to be arguing about these things, we're not looking at the bigger picture, not any of us, at how there are very few people coming into ownership of all of the resources, all of the property, all of the philosophy, basically, the things that you learn and tout as fact are no longer reputable.
They've been buying our brains.
Yeah, and
don't sell it.
And it's through the tax money that we've been paying to them. Like there was in the state of California, it just happened to be during the last presidential election, but there was a bill that was proposed that would raise taxes by a little bit to help fund public, state universities. Good idea, right? But then there was another person that decided they wanted to propose a bill to be voted on that was also about raising taxes to fund public universities. And so they went through this whole advertising campaign. And, you can guess at what advertising, network advertising costs in the state of California. It costs during, during Super Bowl time, during election season. It's an exorbitant amount of money.
Yeah, whoever has the most money to advertise their point, their good deed, that they want the votes, it's buying votes, but not a different type of lobbying, essentially.
It is lobbying, but instead of lobbying the government, it's lobbying the people, and it's no less insidious and dishonest. Because when you consider the fact that there were, given the cost of advertising in the state of California during election season, hundreds of millions of dollars that these individuals spent to push their bill on the people to be voted on.
Yeah, there's more than just two candidates, people. There's There's some real ones that actually run. They're just not on TV necessarily.
Yeah,
Jill Stein.
Yeah, and any of these people, and when you come to consider that, like, there were hundreds of millions of dollars spent on advertising these two exact same bills, those motherfuckers could have actually just given hundreds of millions of dollars to the universities of the state of California.
Yeah, if that's what they actually wanted.
But they didn't want that because they're fuckheads. And this is where I take exception to my previous statement of I'm not going to call certain groups of people fuckheads. I will call out individuals and call them fuckheads. The two people that proposed those bills are examples of exactly what is wrong with this country. The fact that these people were allowed millions of dollars of advertising money to do the thing that they did, instead of just being like, oh, hey, we actually want to accomplish this thing.
Let's just work together and make it happen.
How about if we just give tens of millions of dollars to the schools? Because we're shithead assholes. And so, let's see, what do we do here? So when we get to our political language, and this is our first type of example of cognitive dissonance, I think George Orwell said it best, and this was from an essay that he wrote called Why I Write. And he said, as you can see, political language is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable. And that's basically what it is, you guys. It's when you come into the concept of if I were to ask you, Tom, if I were to ask you, hey, Tom, do you want your tax dollars going to pay to murder people in foreign countries? What would you say?
Absolutely. No. Obviously not. Unless I know some people that really piss me off over there.
Yeah, absolutely, ... Like, no. What would you say in response to that? If you had a choice to say...
Do you want your tax money to go to killing some people you don't even know? Like, who are you and why are you in office, or why are you even able to have anything to do?
Yeah.
Why do you, if that's what you want our tax money for, then you shouldn't be anywhere near any control or making laws.
If you had your choice, Tom, as to what the billions and billions of dollars that American citizens pay in tax revenue to the government, what would you choose for it to go to?
Oh, Jesus Christ, there's so many things.
Pick your top three.
Fuck. Well, the one that pops into my head, first of all, is rerouting the prison system.
That's a big one.
It's a big one. A lot of people incarcerated that shouldn't be incarcerated. I think the violent crimes are something to focus on, making sure people. So yeah, fixing that, getting some therapists in there, actually helping people as opposed to like trapping them or taking their money and putting them on probation.
Sure.
Politically, I don't know. I could get into animal rights right now, but that's not necessarily always like a political topic.
I'm going to do my top three next.
Yeah.
So whatever your top three are, absolutely spout them out. So we did the for-profit prison system. That's a big one. And it stands to be said, there is a full 1% of the American population in prison right now. That's 3 million people behind bars, most of which are in there for nonviolent offenses, like you said. And I don't think any of us are talking about how, we should, just not put anyone in prison because that's kind of a bummer. But, when you have a prison system that involves the unprosecutable rape of American citizens, like actual physical fucking anal rape of people, and that is not a thing that is prosecutable as a crime when you're in prison. does a nonviolent criminal deserve to be subjected to that? And
does anybody deserve to be subjected to that?
yeah,
And it's supposed to be a correctional facility, so to put people, you're not necessarily helping rehabilitate criminals most of the time. You're just throwing them in there and letting them form their own gangs in society within the walls. That's not really fixing anything.
yeah, a lot of these people say, well, I learned how to be a better criminal in prison. Well, that means right then and there that our system has failed. It's not serving the public because the people we're putting back out on the streets afterwards are more prone to violence. Okay, when you rape someone in prison, that is a person that is going to come out more prone to raping someone else. Is that what you hope to accomplish? And as it turns out, like the answer is yes. Like these for-profit prison systems, they get paid by the government to continue to incarcerate people. So if you come back, if you go back into that system, that's more money in some person's pocket, the person who owns these for-profit prisons. It doesn't make much sense to me.
That's the problem with all. Because I was trying to think of like the next two. It's hard to tell. Your tax money when it's going towards something private or something by the state or by the federal government, because it's also blended and blurred together now. But I don't know. I think like our tax. First of all, I think like if any of our taxes are taken out, I think each person should be able to decide where their tax money goes individually, not, I don't know, because it's you're more in control of your money. You have more incentive to like earn it. You're not like kind of like getting swooped by. I feel like the way like a lot of like when you're in that cycle of going to work, go home, like trying to like make ends meet, or even if you have money. I mean, if you have more money, then you have time to think about it, and then obviously those are the people that start interjecting what the taxes are going to actually go towards.
Right.
But when you're stressed out, you don't have time to think about that, and you become jaded, and you like stop caring because you don't have time to care. So I don't know. It'd be nice if you could pick what your tax money goes to, and then you'd actually see like a truthful like areas. If you have shitty roads and those need to be fixed, and you have enough people who are driving on them that give a fuck, then you'll maybe see that change. Or if like education in the area, education, I don't know, that's like a big one too, like non-biased education where I don't really think people should have to even pay for an education. I mean, how do you want to evolve as a society if again, it's being, I don't know, biased on how much money you make, how much of an education you can afford, or you have to go into these certain fields of discipline to make that money back to be able to like pay off your debt. I don't know, I feel like we're getting sidetracked now.
Well, yeah, well, no, I don't think so. I mean, these are topics that people are getting so divided on. But yet, I think if you ask them individually, what would you like your tax money to go to? I think most people would say, if the information was actually presented to
truthfully,
them.
yeah. That's the other thing. That's how they get people to vote for stuff that the person doesn't really want. Like that, what was it when they had like women's suffrage? They made suffrage sound like women's suffering. Do you support women's suffrage as in making them think it was suffering so people would vote against it?
Right.
I feel like they do that shit all the time.
Yeah, they used a very archaic definition of the word suffrage, which means free to or freeing of a restriction to do something, right? Like suffering means that you're leaving something behind. You're freeing yourself of past pain, right? So it wasn't an incorrect definition, but people,
misled.
And it's absolutely right. It was a misleading word.
What's that one with the water I saw the other day? Like there's another.
Oh, dihydrogen monoxide.
Yeah, like if this, there's like a picture of like a rusted sink. If this is what it does to your
Yeah,
sink. What does it do to your
dihydrogen monoxide is responsible for the
corrosion?
oxidation of metals, and it's present everywhere, even in your own body, because the government provides it to you for free. And dihydrogen monoxide is water, right?
Yeah.
It's a matter of, if you can't count on your government to provide you with reliable education, you need to actually make an exerted effort to provide that to yourself.
That's why you got to protect the internet too, because that's our best library.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And so there you have it. Right to privacy, and that's a lot to do with the right to browse the internet freely and educate yourself, the right to education that is not cripplingly expensive, because then what happens, you guys, you'll sit there and be like, I don't think any of this should be free because we live in a capitalist society, and that kid that's just out of high school should have to work for 40 years at a shit-paying job before he can afford to educate himself in a university now. These are the things that very ignorant people say, and it's not their fault.
They don't know. They don't.
It is the politicians that lobby mass media outlets. They lobby Congress itself, so that they can put their horrible nonsense in schools and on TV, and where public education used to be available on your local PBS station. You used to be able to watch Sesame Street and 3-2-1 Contact and Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?
Yeah, where is she?
All of these local PBS stations got bought by the Koch brothers, and so you have a very small number of people presenting to you and funding what is presented to you, just like this Rupert Murdoch asshole has now bought National Geographic. Well, guess what? You're going to hear what he wants you to hear. He's not an unbiased individual.
I wonder how that's, I don't know nothing about him really, but I wonder how that's going to play into actual environmental things that are happening, or things like poaching, or what's if something's going to be hidden, what's he going to hide, or how's he going to...
Well, Rupert Murdoch...
What are we going to be missing out?
Rupert Murdoch owns Fox News, and he owns about 40% by himself, of the visual and news in general media that anyone gets to see or hear. So, when you have that kind of power, you also have a lot of influence on people, and that's no lie,
Motherfuckers just make it positive influence.
It's not okay, and it's not okay for you guys to be asleep to it anymore. When, and I, in advertising for the show and what little that I do, I share links on Facebook with a lot of conspiracy theory groups, and, there's a lot of people that bicker back and forth about, well, is this a liberal versus conservative? And it's just you guys are missing the point, man. And I
gotta work together for what is real, work together for what you can actually accomplish that you do agree with.
Yeah.
And why are you fighting over the things you're fighting with? Why do you believe what you believe? Do you truly believe that? Were you told to believe that? Were you conditioned to believe it?
Did you actually do some independent research that justifies the way you believe, or are you just regurgitating what some person that was paid by one of 5 individuals to have you say? And that's what I want people to think about, is really, are your thoughts your own? And I want to read this one to you guys. I found this, and and I thought it was pretty appropriate. Our culture has accepted two huge lies, and I think these are very true. If you disagree with someone's lifestyle, you must fear or hate them. Okay, this comes into, yeah, and it's a load of horse shit. Like, if you're a Christian, you have been conditioned to fear or hate Muslims because they're the ones that flew the planes into the World Trade Center now, and we've got to go do horrible shit to them now, yeah.
Revenge, an eye for an eye.
Yeah,
It's the horrible line.
way to adhere to your moral Christian values of infinite forgiveness.
It's all violence with
You
violence.
asshole! Like, change something about yourself immediately. Reread your favorite book. How about that?
Yeah, that's the funny thing with a lot of Christians. Like, I would always respect generalizing, because everybody's different. And
Sure.
I would typically respect Muslims I knew over Christians, because they, like, at least, you know, fucking read the Quran, unlike Christians who don't read the Bible, or even if you read the Bible, like, wasn't that one of your key points, the contradictions between the New and the Old Testament?
Yeah.
And it's been so fucking manipulated
Yeah,
over and over again.
You know, and it's one. We'll get to that in just a little bit. I wanna get through the second one of these.
Yeah.
To love someone means you agree with everything they believe or do, and that's horseshit too. And I'll tell you what. And you know, I don't know if I love the man in a biblical sense, but I'll tell you what, me and my friend Tom here have a little bit of a difference between us. Tom here is a vegan, and I am not. And this comes into one of those things where, you know, oh, if you're a Christian, you have to hate homosexuals, and you have to hate Democrats, and you have to hate Muslims. And I'll tell you what, there's quite a bit more difference between what Tom believes and what I believe about this specific thing, because the Christian, I'll put it this way, the extremist Christian and the extremist Muslim both believe that the other are worthy of death.
Yeah, well, they're both convinced that they are right.
Right? And now, while Tom is a vegan and I am not, we don't believe that
The other should die.
yeah, right? Like this is absolute nonsense, and this is something that that people get so caught up in, and they hate on each other, and they turn into these keyboard gangsters on the interweb. You know, and they troll websites that post things that they don't agree with.
What a fucking waste of time. Like,
Yeah,
you could be doing so much more productive shit. And then, I don't know, like, Jesus never, what the fuck did Jesus say that was, like, hateful? Like, I don't remember.
No, nothing. The only time he ever got pissed off was when he turned over the tables of the money changers.
Gambling at church.
And this is another thing, all right? You're going to call yourself a Christian, but then you're going to be conservative politically, and you're going to support the platforms of people who believe that we should take away all of the restrictions from corporations and banks. This was the only time Jesus got pissed and violent with anyone, was at the empire and at banks. Think about that shit for a minute. And then understand that you are a jackass and you have not read your book.
Or that
well
Jesus
enough.
doesn't even believe in the same thing a Christian believes anyway. That's a pretty big one.
So, okay, so we did political cognitive dissonance, and so now we've transitioned, you know, quite well into religious cognitive dissonance. This, you know, this green stop sign, right? Green means go, but stop means stop. This is an example. This is an example of what Dr. Eldon Taylor here was saying about how imagery and language is used against you to confuse you and create this cognitive dissonance, because no one wants war. Like, you don't want war. You're going to put on a uniform and pick up a gun and go shoot someone and think that, you know, and be willing to put yourself in a situation where someone's going to shoot you. No, you fucking idiot. Like, you don't want that.
You're just very opinionated, or you need to get some aggression out.
Yeah, you know, or you've been listening to too much of your favorite news source. And so what we have here now, and we, you know, come to it, is religious cognitive dissonance, and the one of these that I like the best is Kim Davis, and she was the inspiration for this episode. I hate to give her credit for having so much power over my you know, programming choice, but
She's
you know,
gorgeous.
yeah, right. No, she you know, she does it up X-Men style, and I don't mean that in a good way. She was a person who used her religious belief while holding a government elected. She was elected to this post. She used that to discriminate against people.
How sweet.
She failed to do her job, which was, despite her religious beliefs, to uphold the Constitution. She failed to understand that there is a separation of church and state in this country.
Basically, she didn't have enough money to get away with it.
Yeah, you know,
Because people, our Constitution is violated all the time. But yeah, it's if you're not going to be responsible, don't sign up.
Yeah, you know, and it's one of those things where, you know, that's like the, it's like the cashier at your grocery store refusing to sell you condoms and saying, well, I'm sorry, you're a Catholic. I'm sorry, I'm a Catholic, I can't do this. It violates my religious beliefs.
Don't work here, have somebody else ring them up.
And don't go to the other register. She's a Jew, and you're going to have to go put your ham back. She's not going to sell you your ham. No, those people have to suck it up, and they have to do their jobs.
Yeah.
And they would get fired if they didn't. And that's why, you know, this one right here, you know, is an example of a person, you know, and obviously it's a meme, but, you know, thinks Sharia law is dangerous and scary, you know, and Sharia law is the Islamic, you know, very, you know, sexist, very, you know, Middle Ages draconian kind of laws. And that's not okay. Oh, it's horrible to treat people that way, but wants law to be based off of Bible scripture that, you know, is largely based on the Old Testament. Like they want to quote the books of Leviticus and Exodus, which are from the Old Testament and have nothing to do with Christian teachings, the teachings of the Christ, your Lord Jesus, who said, turn the other cheek and be infinitely forgiving, and that which you do to the least of my brothers, that you do unto me.
So wait, what was she trying to implement? She was being sexist?
Well, she was being homophobic.
Oh, she's the one with the one signed the marriage license.
Exactly.
She didn't agree with it.
And so, so that brings us, you know, in a kind of roundabout way, to our fuckface of the week, and I want to share one of her quotes with you. She said, whether they're defending, and she is this ultra-conservative.
This is from 2003, talking about the Soviet Union.
Yeah, right. So this was, shit, man. I mean, this was still under George Bush, right?
Yeah.
Whether they are defending the Soviet Union or bleeding for Saddam Hussein, liberals are always against America. They are either traitors or idiots.
How do you even arrive to that conclusion or generalization?
Yeah, and especially when you consider that it was your hero king Republican President Ronald Reagan that was the one who put Saddam Hussein. Yeah, sorry, right.
I barfed at the R word.
Yeah, Ronald Reagan was the one who put Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden through CIA training and gave them money and weapons. Saddam Hussein, when he was fighting our enemies in Iran,
Yeah.
and
They knew they'd see the money back quadruple once we sent some people
well,
to
yeah,
die and
exactly.
recover it all.
And it's I'm gonna go ahead and put her up here so that we can put the fuckface caption
Skeletor.
underneath her. Yeah, and you see she's got that giant Adam's apple too. I'm not convinced she's not a man.
She looks like a reptilian. No.
But and then also under Ronald Reagan, he gave money to fund Osama bin Laden and the Taliban when they were fighting against the Russians during the Cold War. While we were sitting back on our haunches and saying, oh, it's a Cold War, it's a war of ideals, the Afghanis were actually fighting that hot war for us on the ground, excuse me, with training and weapons that we provided them. So Ann Coulter is a purveyor of lies. She is an ignorant person who does not know history. And she's our fuckface of the week because she is a ignorant, divisive cunt, and she is a person who you should strive to not be like. You should read books, and you should look at history and analyze it subjectively for yourself.
Yeah.
And
if you don't, just don't write a book on how it is if you don't know.
Yeah, that's the least you can do. Don't write a fucking book about how ignorant you are. and certainly don't do things that are so divisive. Honestly, if one conservative or one liberal beat a liberal or conservative to death over the matter arguing about this stupid bitch's books, she's responsible for it because that's what she intended.
Conflict.
Yeah. So you guys, we're at the end of our episode. I want to thank Tom Zarzaki once again for coming in, on the show and talking to me once again. It's always a good time having him here. And to you guys, I want to say, seriously, the power is in your hands. You were able to drop McDonald's stock through the floor because you stopped eating there. You put that asshole that killed Cecil the lion out of business because you sent him stuffed animals and called him a coward, and hopefully mailed him boxes of dog shit. I don't know.
Don't stop giving a fuck. Give a fuck about the things that matter.
Yeah. Let people know what you want and what you believe, and use your best moral judgment to do so.
Yeah, and ask yourself why you want those things, just to make sure you're not fucking anybody else's shit up.
And above all, tonight, everyone, wherever you're going, get there safe. We'll catch you next time, and thanks for watching. Peace.